Welcome back to the news, everyone. I've got a lot of fascinating topics for you today. I mean, come on, Xbox AI getting a little bit of trouble. That's always fun. And Activision Blizzard. Mike Ybarra's been talking to the press. Seemingly, some potentially hopium things are going on. At least it does seem that the chain of command may actually be a bit better if you care about games, which of course we do. We do, though, have the death of Bobby's pet project, the OverWatch League, which is rather funny to take a look at, especially because they haven't just been able to cancel it. Oh no, they have had to pay termination fees that will have been rather expensive, and Warcraft Rumble, a game that has launched to a bit of a rumble, hardly an explosion. There's interesting data that we're going to have to dive into. Today's video that is brought to you by our members to help what we do and also get loads of exclusive content and early content. Go to bellular.ghost.io. You can sign up for our membership there. That's you'll get Loading Screen, which is our daily newsletter giving you all of the news, as well as access to all of our work. Actually, in fact, you will see our documents before I see them. Absolute best place to go and learn everything you need to about what's going on in the industry and help us build what we're doing. Let's check out the future of Blizzard then. So, BlizzCon was the first opportunity to, have the press and people like that talk to Mike Ybarra post-acquisition. So we're starting to get a little bit of a feeling of what's actually going on. Number one at BlizzCon, everyone noticed how Ybarra forgot to mention StarCraft in his opening statement, which was rather disappointing. But then Phil Spencer did mention it when he walked onto the stage, which I suppose did look a little bit better. Who knows, maybe they're just playing a little good cop, bad cop with us anyhow. What has been said is quite interesting. Quote, I literally haven't sat down with Phil Spencer and said, so what does all this mean? Basically, there's no 5-year plan, there's no 1-year plan. Spencer hasn't came in and instituted sweeping changes upon the developer. As Bloomberg's reporting says, the visit of the Xbox leadership team to the actual Blizzard campus was very much actually more of a fact-finding mission. It involved Phil Spencer just talking to loads of staff and essentially asking what they need. As an example, you have a quote from Jonathan Haidt, who is the general manager of Warcraft, saying, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're not coming here with a master plan. How can we help you? It was awesome. So, happy John Haidt, but then again, he is a man who knows how the media works. He would kind of be talking like that, as any of us would in his situation. Overall, though, from a little of my own on-the-ground fact-finding, when I was at BlizzCon, it does seem that Blizzard employees, broadly speaking, would rather be under the yoke of Microsoft and Phil Spencer and that chain of decision-making than, of course, the wildland of Bobby Kotick, which they have been in. So at least it seems that staff are a bit happier. Now, the idea of independence is the one that we really care about the most. For the longest time, people just did not like Activision Blizzard, right? People wanted Blizzard to be separate. Is that literally happening? No, but Ybarra has said interesting things. In an interview, Blizzard president Mike Ybarra said that Spencer has indicated that he wants Blizzard to be more like the independent studio it once was. Quote, I absolutely love that, Ybarra said. It motivates the teams. In the 2 years he has been in charge, Ybarra said, he had to run many decisions up the chain of executives at Activision, slowing everything down. Going to Phil and saying, hey, can we do this? I think he would look at me and go, run your studio, Ybarra said. I do think our decision-making will be faster, which I would say certainly is a good thing. There's been a lot of very slow decision-making that has been bad for PR, right? That has happened with this company for quite some time. So overall then, this could be somewhat of a healthy change. What does it mean from games though? Well, Ybarra was quite quick to point out that it's not like anything will be changing massively immediately. Mobile still is a key focus. Of course, Warcraft Rumble is merely just confirming that. And of course they are, Ybarra said, keen to get back into China as well when they can find a partner. Because yes, imagine just saying bye to China and losing all of those players, which certainly is a lot of players. Now, the expected launches in the future seemingly are in the Blizzardy style. Ybarra spoke of the unannounced survival game, basically saying that the recruiting site for it got loads of attention and maybe people think it's coming sooner than it will be. So he thinks that people's expectations may be outsized in terms of progress. They've just said that, like, when the team's ready to showcase, they'll go to Ybarra and the game will be showcased. From what I understand, that's one of those projects that's just been heavily in that early iteration phase. Just, you know, a lot. I think there's probably been a few versions of that game. From what I understand, that game has been in development for quite some time. I don't really know if this is the sort of thing that we should take as being rather worrying, but in a way it also could just be some of that Blizzard process. At the end of the day, at least it's not being rushed out in a sort of minimal way as Overwatch 2 was. Now, about StarCraft, that's probably the one that I care about, the most. It's the one my heart most longs for. I mean, I went to BlizzCon and there was no StarCraft esports. Is that not a fairly disheartening thing to see? The answer is yes, it is a disheartening thing. It's not me saying go make a StarCraft game, Ybarra said. I need to have someone who has the vision and passion to come up with the idea, and I'll bet on that team. StarCraft is something we love. We hear the feedback from players, but we're not talking about anything just yet. So, who knows? Because ultimately, a lot of the people who are involved in StarCraft are just not at the company anymore. Certainly, I would recommend checking out Stormgate, very much a spiritual successor to StarCraft 2, and one that I cannot wait to play personally. Now, one thing that Ybarra said was quite interesting to me because it was distinctly not Activision Blizzard. He said, we're not afraid to create new IPs, we're not afraid to turn models upside down. He looks for teams to come up with an idea. Quote, that can be someone who has an idea for a 4-hour experience or a 400-hour experience, and for Blizzard, I'm open to all those ideas. So that was an interesting thing for me to hear, because a 4-hour experience is profoundly not an Activision Blizzard thing, and it's also profoundly not a Blizzard Entertainment thing, because the one thing you've got to remember is Blizzard Entertainment were the leaders, some of the pioneers in games as a service, right? With the likes of World of Warcraft. It certainly is interesting then to see a 4-hour experience be dropped. Certainly, I think of, say, the Nova missions for StarCraft 2 that I really, really enjoyed. Awesome, few hour long experience, especially in those harder difficulties. Does it maybe mean that smaller things like that could make sense? Could they be opened like smaller games that are just fun little one-offs from their team? To be honest, I would personally kind of love that. I mean, even look what Riot have been able to do with Forge, with how they've been able to license out their IP, to work with indies that they trust and make some really cool experiences within Runeterra. So there you go, no sweeping change, but at least Ybarra is saying that, hey, in the past I had to run it through multiple levels of Activision, now I ask Phil, and I imagine Phil will say, run your studio. So that probably is a good thing. And another thing that may be a good thing is what's happened to the Overwatch League. And I say good, even though this will impact people's jobs, it'll impact the pro scene. Maybe good because ultimately this is one of those things that was being propped up. It wasn't making money. It was not a financially viable endeavor. So you could say that it's rather inefficient for it to keep on running in its older form. And basically that's what's happened. In a statement provided to GG Recon, ActiBliz confirmed that the Overwatch League is officially over as a concept. Is that not, just to take a step back, insane? The Overwatch League caused a lot of, you could say it gave a lot to Overwatch for some of its fans, but for many it caused a lot of damage, and it was quite disruptive to the development team. I know that from sources actually on the team, but also mostly sources from the early days of the Overwatch League, because they basically were not ready for that shit. But hey, Bobby wanted to do the gamer NFL, so Bobby tried to make it happen. Here's what they said: we're transitioning from the Overwatch League and evolving competitive Overwatch in a new direction. We're grateful to everyone who made it, what it was, blah, 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 and they'll share details in the future. Now, this was following statements this morning from team owners like Overactive Media, who own, as an example, the Toronto Defiant. They issued a press statement on the 8th that confirmed their departure from the league and the uptake of Activision Blizzard's buyout. Quote, the deal was that if the teams wanted to leave, they would say in a vote, a 2/3 majority has carried it. So there you go. A vast majority, really, like when you're coming to voting, like 2/3 is pretty overwhelming, have said to cancel the league. And under the terms of the agreement, Overactive got a termination payment of 8.62 million Canadian dollars, so $6 million US dollars. So you can imagine those payments going out to all of those teams. That absolutely is going to be a lovely final pill to swallow. In what was, honestly, seemingly a massive financial failure. Now, according to the Jason Wolf report sources, it's pretty clear what's going to happen next. Plans for a new look Overwatch League are still up in the air, but it's likely it will be an open circuit system similar to what existed prior to the formation of the franchise league in 2018. If you like grassroots esports, this could actually be a better thing. You'll maybe have more character and more passion, but potentially less views. We'll have to see what's happened, but ultimately, yes, the Overwatch League is dead. Long live the Overwatch League. Warcraft Rumble. Warcraft Rumble, it's the mobile game in the Warcraft franchise that is brand new. It came out over BlizzCon, and per Game World Observer, here are some lovely true facts. $3.4 million in revenue from November 2nd, 2.56 million downloads globally, revenue per download of 1.48 in a lifetime, including soft launch revenue of $4.34 million with 3.93 million downloads. As you can certainly see, the amount of beans that you're getting per dollar is not particularly large in this little segment of mobile. And certainly if you compare this to some other games, no, you are absolutely not looking at a large success. As an example, Diablo Immortal garnered 14.5 million in its first week. Of course, really turbo powered by all of its, 600% value bundles that appeared and, all that jazz, right? The legendaries the legendaries that kind of acted like a gacha game. That being said, there's sort of gacha-like stuff. Basically, the way that Warcraft Rumble works, it's one of those collection-based games. So, of course, you get minis, right? The minis, the actual pieces that you put down on the board when you're playing, and those minis have got their quality level. Basically, you need to get more and more and more dupes of the mini to increase the quality level, and then they have XP. The quality level unlocks like little talent sockets, basically, and XP just makes them stronger. So ultimately, what you really want are more minis and XP. Now, what you're basically doing on a daily basis is you're trying to go through the PvE missions. However, those really ramp up, right, in terms of their raw numbers. So eventually you'll hit a point, maybe when you're like 50 stars, I forget, they're not called stars, but imagine Mario stars, right? You're like 50 stars into the campaign. That's where the scaling really starts to make you think, I really need to think about buildcraft, and I also need to think about the quality of my minis. So there are the players incentivized basically to purchase minis and that sort of thing from the little weird purchase board that they have, and then the XP bundles that appear every day for gold. And of course, that gold you earn by basically doing these events that spawn in every 2 days and last for 2 days. I believe with those you get like, I don't know, maybe like 600 gold every 2 days. Of course, gold can be purchased and all of that stuff. Overall then, it's one of those games where it's very much there is a curve, right, of how hard things get in terms of raw numbers, and what happens is the curve of your player power is, not as steep as that curve, and if you want to align your player power curve with the sort of enemy difficulty and that kind of thing, you will be encouraged to either spend or grind more, and that is just how this type of game works. Probably not as strong of a hook as with Diablo Immortal, though I would say, like with Immortal, this is one of those games where the actual feeling the squeeze of wanting to buy things, that will actually come in a little bit later, maybe in week 2 or week 3. It is certainly, though, something you can have plenty of fun with just playing, for free solo, right? So ultimately the question then is what's going on, because this is part of the same portfolio as COD Mobile, Warzone Mobile, and Diablo Immortal, as well as the rest of King, meaning that these numbers likely are a pittance. So then the question is this just going to be killed or abandoned? Or is this something that they're just happy to have as a part of the Warcraft IP? Maybe they think they can tie this in with their other Warcraft games, that sort of thing. Certainly, though, you think about, the $3.4 million in revenue, in week 1. Then you think about the development costs for this game. This game was in development for a long-ass time. So you think about that on one hand. You think about all the marketing costs. You think about how right now the revenue per download does appear to be, a little bit low, maybe off the back of this not being as good with, say, whales and minnows as maybe Diablo Immortal was, and I suppose you are just really left wondering. Okay, finally then, we do have a little bit of Xbox AI. All right, Microsoft obviously are going big into AI. They've invested, giga money in, of course, OpenAI, the AI company that is not OpenAI that was founded as a open source nonprofit that is now a for-profit closed company, even though it's called OpenAI. Thumb up to that. Happy, we live in the good times. Anyhow, yes, Microsoft went in hard there. That obviously means that Xbox has got access to all of that cutting-edge stuff. What's happened then? Well, they want to make some of this, machine learning-based AI stuff happen. And to help this, they have announced a multi-year partnership with an investment firm-backed company called Inworld AI. So what's the purpose here? Well, I'll just read out what they said. Together, we aim to deliver an accessible, responsibly designed multi-platform AI toolset to assist and empower creators in dialogue, story, and quest design. The toolset will include an AI Design CoPilot that assists and empowers game designers to explore more creative ideas, turning prompts into detailed scripts, dialogue trees, quests, and more. An AI Character Runtime engine that can be integrated into the game client, enabling entirely new narratives with dynamically generated stories, quests, and dialogue for players to experience. Overall then, all of this. Look, I do not like to come in and just be like, AI bad, because I heard AI and AI is the bad, buzzword, right? In the same way, so much of our political environment really boils down to 3-word slogans. Do these 3 words make you angry or do they make you happy? That's the only way anything can be, right? That's how things work in present day. So here's what I'll say about AI. Right now, it's being used in Blizzard Entertainment to resize helmets for different characters in World of Warcraft. Because, let's be real, in 3D, no one wants to do that shit. It takes a load of time and it's just goddamn boring. Even take a look at, say, the rotoscoping that they did in Star Wars. Remember the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith one? Did you know in that very long lightsaber fight at the end, those lightsabers were hand rotoscoped out by poor bastards at ILM? Now, if you can use some AI-based tools to, say, automatically rotoscope the lightsaber so that somebody isn't spending weeks rotoing a lightsaber, that's really good. Overall, then, what's going on here with this? An AI design co-pilot that assists and empowers game designers to explore more creative ideas. So there are sometimes I can say what I've came up with like an idea as my own thing. There are times where I will basically put it into like a ChatGPT like program or ChatGPT and say, red team this, rip this idea to shreds, point out problems, point out things that I may not notice. And that's a situation where I am more using that to kind of refine ideas. And it's called rubber ducking in programming, right? Basically, it's one of the benefits of like pair programming and programming. You have somebody else to bounce ideas off. So you can say, hello, AI, am I absolutely cooking up shite? Hello, AI, is this really stupid? And sometimes there may be things that you may miss that it may pick up, right? And that can just be rather useful, especially as I'm sure you know, sometimes your brain is just in one mode and you kind of feel like doing a certain type of work. You maybe find it hard to cognitively switch over to seeing your work from another angle. That is a good example of when a tool like this can be actually quite useful. Or maybe using some of those AI tools in Photoshop to, remove something from a background. Like, that's all really, really good, useful examples of this technology. The problem, though, and it's what we're going to see in some future videos we have planned, because, man, the games media is getting in this. The games journalists hate it, but the people who own the sites that employ the games journalists love it, where it's just, hello, I would like an article, please. So it's one of those challenging things. As an example, let's just say you hook up an internal chatbot to, the World of Warcraft Wikipedia, with all the information. And, you're just like, hey, I want to know this thing about Jaina. Because somebody just wants to reference something when they're writing, a line of dialogue. And maybe they can bring up, this is the thing, and here is the citation. They can click in the citation. There's lots of tools like that can be useful. Essentially being an augmented search, better at parsing data, but, obviously used by professionals as a tool, rather than, say, used by grifters in YouTube. I'm sure you've seen the epidemic of faceless YouTube channels with low quality, poorly researched information. The same going on for shorts formats. I'm seeing videos like, I made 5,000 YouTube shorts in 20 minutes. And you're like, oh, I'm sure those are all really good quality and absolutely not just random time-wasting bullshit to exploit how a system works to earn some money, right? So obviously this stuff has got to be done well. Fine-tuning on one's own data set, I think, is going to be extremely important in something like this. As for this AI character runtime engine that can be integrated into a game client, I've got to be real with you. This is where things could actually be quite interesting indeed. At the end of the day, NPCs, everything's got to be scripted out, right? There are some things that have been done to have more like generative dialogue in the past, but here you could actually have something interesting. The thing, though, is, the problem of hallucination, where an AI will be confidently wrong. We need to fix that. But I think there is a space in narrative games for a mixture of reactivity and highly authored content. For me, it's just, what are the safety bounds around that implementation of AI? What are the copyright issues like? But the idea that, you can have an NPC with all of its human authored content, but then you can maybe have that NPC know what has happened to people that it knows, know what's happened to the town that it lives in, and be able to rather dynamically speak about all of those things in its own voice. That's the sort of thing where if you just presented that in front of a player, it would end up being like, oh, imagine Oblivion, but it actually sold the fantasy that they wanted from those NPCs. Of course, we all know the hilarious, good day, how are you? I've seen mud crabs. Ah, yes, good day. Then they both look at each other and say, goodbye, and then walk away and all that weirdness, right? So it's one of those things. Look, I'm not a Luddite. I love technology. I'm generally all about embracing the future. It's just this shit needs to be done with care. And I think for most creators within the game space, for most players, myself included, the thing that we're worried about is that rather than a tool to help designers do their job better and to focus more on creative work, we worry that this will essentially be used as a cheap shortcut, and perhaps we will have narratives that feel like the narrative equivalent of an over-bloated Ubisoft game, where it's like, yeah, you've over-indexed in your ability to produce content, but you maybe haven't thought as much about how good that content is, because ultimately when everything is just seen as content, you know, more meat for the machine, we get into trouble areas. And that is where, as much as the idea of some of these being integrated into a tool set, like, you know, a Premiere Pro or a Photoshop, to me, that's like interesting and useful. Done bad, which more than likely is how a lot of these big companies are going to probably end up doing this, yeah, it could be really quite worrying. Right now, of course, there are specific problems. We don't really know clear-cut what the data source is here. There could be worries about plagiarism, right? That sort of thing. Obviously, we're in an era where people are very tired of cookie-cutter quest design done by humans. You know, those are probably, like, those literally are quests that could just be done by an AI, literally. But the problem is, like, it's not a good thing. And if the AI makes doing the bad, uninspired thing easier, what's that going to mean? Does that mean that they, you know, all the humans get to go and make really good, amazing things? Or does it mean that the human team gets slashed to pieces and then our games just have more of that, you know, generated filler, right? I mean, that ultimately is the big fear here if you are a consumer or potentially a worker in the industry. So overall for me, I do think that there are potential ways that this technology could be harnessed in a good way, because ultimately technology is a tool. The problem is, how do people use the tool? And that is where I am the most concerned, where I think more likely than not, likely in the majority of instances, this will probably not be a good thing for the people who are playing games. Now, could there be examples where this could be interesting? I suppose yes. As an example, if you have a chatbot that is very fine-tuned onto a character's full wiki with loads of that character's, like, you know, the way that they talk, then maybe if you're a designer and you're, you know, writing a quest, you can say, how would that character think of this situation? And maybe it would be able to provide some useful pointers for you that could help you just put ideas together a little bit quicker and maybe could get you sparking and creative. I know plenty of people who, you know, they've just not been able to put their finger on why they don't like something that they've written, and they've actually been able to use GPT-4 and it's been able to say, well, here are some potential issues based on what you've given me, and they have found that, as writers or whatever, to be rather useful. Now, yes, they could just give that to their friend who is a writer, and their friend could give them the feedback, and probably it would be better feedback, but what if that friend ain't there? What if they're busy? That sort of thing. There's potential also in the way that you've got your, you know, Kenshi, Dwarf Fortress, Crusader Kings, Mountain Blade, things like that. They're amazing at creating those emergent narrative experiences. The thing is, that emergent narrative experience, if you can get that via some AI agents actually talking to each other, that could start to be interesting. But is that just dynamic window dressing, or is that an actual true story with consequences and impact that matter? Because ultimately, that is the reason why people enjoy the likes of Dwarf Fortress. So basically, there you go. There is potential, as there is in all things. I do not trust the industry not to try to use this in the laziest, worst way to just reduce the amount of humans that are working on these projects in a way that is completely uncaring of the actual artistic integrity of the experience. And I think the true reason why one really wants to play games and, you know, have that breadth of experience. I'm fine a human working with the thing as a tool to help the human do better work, but we all know the bigwigs would rather replace the humans. And that's the bit that's sad. So that's it for today's video. Go to bellular.ghost.io for way more content. It's where we're building the heart of our entire operation going forward. So we're free from the algorithm, free from the bullshit, and can focus on making excellent content that you guys enjoy. Already, you will get so much written content over there. And of course, there is only more to come as time goes on. Thank you for all of your support thus far, and I will see you next time.